This is VSiN's College Football Betting Podcast.
Welcome in another edition of the VSiN College Football Betting Podcast. Alongside Matt Youmans, I am Tim Murray, getting ready for week 2 of the college football season. Certainly a heftier card, and a card that it might make my partner, Matt Youmans, just drool a little bit like you're going to In-N-Out, because there are 19, count them, 19 home underdogs this week, Matt Youmans.
Well, Tim, some of the dogs I played last week played dead. So hopefully the dogs are live this week. And this segment won't be In-N-Out. It's sponsored by Raising Cane's.
I don't know.
Hopefully the dogs are Raising Cane this weekend, and I am going to play some.
Yeah, me too. Actually, looking at my card, all dogs, and I believe you are the same way. So we have hopefully a bounce back. Wasn't a terrible week, not a great week. I know the big thing is accountability on social media nowadays when it comes to plays. I think that's fair. We do our records, and we were playing it back before the show because I didn't know whether or not to count this because the FBS, FCS lines did not come out until Saturday, so it couldn't have been an official play on Thursday. But Iowa State, Northern Iowa did go under. So, Matt, official ruling, does that count for me or not?
That counts.
All right.
That's a winner. That is a winner.
If it was a loser, wouldn't have counted, right?
Well,
no.
Here's one of the issues with the FBS, FCS games. When those, I wish those lines came out a little bit sooner, and I'm not sure why they come out so late.
Yeah.
In some cases, without a doubt, the best bet I had last week, I didn't have a lot of good ones, was Southern Utah plus 33.5 at Arizona State.
Yeah.
But the line didn't come out until the day of the game, and Tim, it's a little bit frustrating because those are some of the weakest lines, the softest lines you're going to find on the board are in those matchups, which is why the lines don't come out later. But can't you put them out the day before the game? Do they have to come out on game day? And that's a little bit frustrating, but nice job by you on that Northern Iowa matchup. And let's pick a few more winners this week.
Yeah, so overall 2-2 last week for me, 2-4 for Matt, 3-4 on the season for Mr. Youmans on the podcast. I know week 0 on VSiN tonight, you were 2-0, and for me on the year 3-2. But let's jump right into it, Matt. The biggest game of the weekend, College Game Day, will be in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. Number 3 Alabama taking on Texas. This is a 7 p.m. Eastern kick on ESPN. And we have seen, at time of record, we are recording this on Thursday afternoon for anyone who was wondering, we have seen a hook arrive at DraftKings on the Longhorns. And that has piqued your interest, Mr. Youmans. You are looking to the dog here on the road in Texas.
Yeah, I'm checking the screen, and I think we're going to see a couple more. Actually, I see another 7.5 out there at a book I don't have access to, but you're going to see 7.5. A couple more pop up in this game. I think the public's going to prefer the favorite. My interest has been piqued in this game for a couple reasons. One is the Alabama secondary, Tim. It's a new-look secondary. Lost a couple key guys from last year, and now banged up with injuries. Hey, these Texas wide receivers are going to be a handful for the Tide secondary in this matchup. And Quinn Ewers, I didn't think looked that great last week, the Texas quarterback. You know, if you recall last year's game, I know you do, a lot of people believe that Texas would have won that game in Austin if Quinn Ewers didn't go down after getting hit and leaving the game with a shoulder injury. Alabama won it 20-19. Well, I think in this matchup, Ewers being healthy is going to make a difference, but he's got veteran wide receivers working against a suspect, shorthanded Tide secondary, and I think that's going to be the difference here. Plus, Texas is big and physical on the offensive and defensive lines, not going to be pushed around in this matchup. I was surprised at how good Jalen Milroe, Alabama quarterback, looked last week. Now, it was against Middle Tennessee, but he accounted for 5 total touchdowns. Looked a lot better than he did in his brief action a year ago when he was backing up Bryce Young. I've got to play the dog here, Tim. You can get the 7 and the hook, and that's enough to get me hooked in on the Longhorns because I think this is going to be a down-to-the-wire game. I'm going to say Alabama wins it by a field goal.
So a couple injuries. You mentioned suspect secondary to keep an eye on. Malachi Moore who is a projected first-round pick for Alabama. He is his status is up in the air, and also Jalen Key, the transfer from UAB, I believe his status is up in the air too. So certainly something to keep in mind. Texas, a team both you and I, Matt, preseason high on, which is always a worrisome endeavor, but they have some talented wide receivers. When you look at the likes of Xavier Worthy, who had 7 catches last week, Jordan Whittington, Jatavian Sanders, their tight end, A.D. Mitchell had 3 catches and a touchdown for Texas last week, and then Isaiah Nayer just 1 catch, the transfer from Wyoming.
It's entirely possible that Sark completely gets outcoached by Nick Saban in this matchup, and Bama wins by double digits. Sark is a big concern of mine because he's not a great game manager, but he's got the talent here for Texas to actually go into Tuscaloosa and win this game. I have to take the 7.5.
You know, a lot of people will say the game of the week is Texas-Alabama. That's where College Game Day is. The other pregame show is headed to, headed to Boulder, Colorado. Big noon kickoff will be there for the prime effect as Colorado, the Fighting Mike Pritchards, take on the Nebraska Cornhuskers and the Colorado Buffaloes after their performance as a 21-point underdog last week, Matt. A 45-42 victory. Shedeur Sanders throwing for over 500 yards. 4 different wide receivers having over 100 yards receiving. One of them is a running back, Dylan Edwards. Travis Hunter doing it on both ends of the field. 45-42 Colorado victory, and the Buffs are now in the AP top 25 at number 22. Nebraska had a 10-3 lead against Minnesota on the road, and in typical Nebraska fashion, they blew that lead, as I believe the stat is now in the last 24 games decided by a touchdown or less. Nebraska is 4-20 in those games.
Wow.
Matt, as we sit here right now, this is very interesting because this will be, I believe, the most publicly bet one-sided game of the entire week. You're seeing different books mention that. We're showing you a graphic for those of you watching with us on Thursday at DraftKings. Colorado is catching 3. Well, I'm here to tell you right now, Circa, the Westgate Superbook, and other shops across town have actually dipped down to 2.5. Last night, personally, Wednesday night, I was able to get it at a local shop at 3.5. I'm on Colorado here. It could be a situation where, I'm on Nebraska here. I beg your pardon. I'm on Nebraska here. It could be a situation where this team just has more firepower, Colorado, than Nebraska. But the game of the year line was as high as 9 in favor of the Cornhuskers, Matt. I'm going to take the 3. If there's a 3 and a hook out there, I would grab that. But for the podcast purposes, it'll probably be 3 because I don't see any 3.5s out there. But I'm with the Corn here in this spot.
Yeah, I've got a bet in my pocket on 3.5 plus 3.5 with Nebraska here. We'll go on the record of plus 3 is to play with the Cornhuskers. Right now, DraftKings is at 3. South Point opened this 9 over the summer. Yep. Nebraska -9. Circa on Sunday opened Colorado -5. You're talking about a 14-point adjustment right there in those two numbers. Now, did there deserve to be an adjustment? Hell yes, because a lot of people had Colorado misrated. I would say that the number was a misread on the rating on the Colorado Buffaloes by odds makers, a lot of handicappers. Hey, I talked about this last week, Tim. I said TCU is not as talented as Colorado. In fact, the Buffaloes starting 22 more talented than TCU. I don't think you could argue that.
No, you can't.
And we saw that play out on the field. In the preseason, I had TCU power rated my number 42 team in the country. They weren't the Horned Frogs are not a legit top 25 team. And TCU's also got a terrible defense. So I don't think you can make too much out of what happened in Fort Worth last weekend. Yeah, I give Colorado all the credit in the world for showing up, showing out, and winning that game 45-42. Travis Hunter with a big pick down near the goal line. Colorado with a big 4th down conversion that results in a touchdown. Some big plays the Buffaloes made to win that game. Deion Sanders has been talking like he just won the Super Bowl. Meanwhile, the Cornhuskers grinding, blew a game they should have won. How about the Nebraska defense last week? Allowed 251 total yards, 55 rushing yards, 3.6 yards per play. It's going to be it looked like the black shirts. It's going to be a different type of challenge for the Colorado offense this week. I don't think the talent being superior is going to make a huge difference. And also, Nebraska should have a coaching edge. I'm a situational handicapper, first and foremost. I got to take the Cornhuskers and the points, and I did.
You know, I do this every week, every Tuesday night on VSiN Primetime. You talk about letdown spots, right? Big emotional moments. You might say, this isn't a letdown spot for Colorado. This is the home opener. It's a sellout at Folsom Field. That's true. But look at how they celebrated. Look at how everything transpired after that game. And I totally understand it. People were very questionable about, the hire and the transfer portal and all of that. And they looked the part. And Sean Lewis, the offensive coordinator for Colorado, called a tremendous game. As long as Jeff Sims, Matt, doesn't turn the ball over on a regular basis, which he tended to do last week, then I think you're sitting in a decent spot here with the Corn. So I will take the 3. Hopefully a 3.5 emerges out there, but give me Nebraska in this spot. Big noon kickoff against the Colorado Buffaloes. All right, on the other side, Matt Youmans, I mentioned a whole bunch of home dogs, and we'll do a little bit of a teaser before we head to the break, because I know you've got to play on this one, and it hurts me inside. Notre Dame, number 10 in the country, a 7.5-point favorite, Matt. We'll do full analysis on the other side, but this is a spot where you think the Irish might be just a little bit too overvalued going down on the road to take on NC State.
Well, it's a big step up in class from facing Navy and Tennessee State, and I think that Irish are for real. I think they're the real deal. But when you start laying more than a touchdown on the road against legit opponents, this is probably a legit top 25 team, and NC State's a different story.
NC State, a home dog, one of 19 home dogs. One particular spot is one that I absolutely love. We'll get into that as well. Plenty more plays to come. It is the VSiN College Football Betting Podcast. Alongside Matt Youmans, I'm Tim Murray.
This is VSiN's College Football Betting Podcast.
Week 2 of the college football season. We got a whole lot of dogs. We were just talking about it during the break. I think it's like the 12-year anniversary of the Coastal Carolina coach. I want dogs. I don't want any kitty cats. Meow. I want dogs. Well, speaking of dogs, there's a whole lot of them, and we're going to be betting them. Already in the can, we've got a best bet from Matt, Texas, plus the 7.5, and both Matt and I going with the Corn plus the 3, which is the current number available. Shout out to Brent Musburger. He came on your show, VSiN, tonight. He said he liked the prime effect against TCU, and he was absolutely right. Not the last
He didn't just like it. He bet it. Yeah. He took the 21. He had the best number. That's how pro bets. There you go.
I'll tell you this is not the last time Brent Musburger will be mentioned on this podcast. But let's get to Notre Dame, NC State. We hinted at a little bit. Notre Dame has won 28 straight games over ACC foes in the regular season. The ACC commissioner, Jim Phillips, during media days, was pleading, can somebody please beat Notre Dame? Well, maybe it'll be NC State. Catching 7.5, a very public side, no doubt, will be Notre Dame this week. John Murray from the Westgate Superbook on Thursday let me know already 4-1 ticket count on the Irish, which terrifies me. Carter Finley Stadium can be a house of horrors. The last time Notre Dame went there was a hurricane, and they lost 10-3 in a game Brian Kelly just kept playing from the shotgun for some reason. But this is a play for you, Matt Youmans. I'm not going to disagree with it. I'm not personally playing it, but why are you on the Wolfpack here?
Speaking of Brian Kelly, he likes to shotgun at the 1-yard line too, 4 times in a row. Imagine that. When you still have the rules in college football where you can push the quarterback into the end zone from behind, he's got the quarterback in the shotgun at the 1-yard line. Oh, by the way, Brian Kelly has not won 20-some games in a row against ACC opponents either.
He has not. By the way, 1-0 against Matt. We don't go head-to-head against each other very often, so I will take that. And
you had Florida State? And I had LSU.
I might have to retire on that one.
I had a friend text me in the third quarter of the game when Florida State took the lead. LSU was up 17-14 at halftime. Florida State comes back and takes the lead, and he said, LSU live bet on the text. And I responded, LSU dead. There's nothing live about LSU at that point. And Brian Kelly mismanaged that game. We move on here to Notre Dame, North Carolina State. How good has Sam Hartman been for the Irish so far? 82.5% completions, 445 yards, 6 touchdowns, no picks, very few mistakes at all. Almost flawless. He has faced the defenses from Navy and Tennessee State. So I think what you're going to see here is a big step up in class. When Hartman was a quarterback at Wake Forest, he faced NC State 3 times. He lost twice. He had 6 TD passes and 6 picks. So, that doesn't mean a lot to me. He's in a new offense now at Notre Dame. It's a different story. But when you're taking this big step up in class, Tim, and it's a true road game, this is not a neutral. It's a true road game against a team that's power rated on the fringe of the top 25. I think you got to play the home dog. I wasn't blown away by NC State in that first game, but I think the Wolfpack are going to be fired up here. They're going to be live dogs. And they've also got a quarterback, Brennan Armstrong, who's passed for more than 9,000 yards in his career. When you have a veteran quarterback like that and you're catching 7.5 at home, good coach, good quarterback, I feel like you got to play it. Irish, first game on the road, this is going to be similar to what I feel like is going to play out in the Texas-Alabama game, Tim. Battle down to the wire, and I think the Irish squeak it out by a field goal. You're going to be celebrating on Twitter, but we get the cover with NC State plus 7.5.
You know what? I for my blood pressure, I kind of want it to be a rocking chair situation, but
I don't think
because you're my friend, and we like to give out winners on this podcast. I hope that is the case. I would prefer like a backdoor cover situation, but regardless, this game scares me. I agree with everything that you said. I think the 2 guards for Notre Dame in Coogan. And on one side, and the other new starter on the for the Irish. I think that they're going to be tested quite a bit by Tony Gibson, a very good defensive coordinator. Billy Schrouth is the other guard. So we'll see. Notre Dame, Sam Hartman, you mentioned his numbers. They've been phenomenal against the blitz this year. 12 for 12. 4 touchdown passes. So we'll see what Tony Gibson dials up, but he has had Sam Hartman's numbers, so to speak. That game, noon Eastern on ABC. Could be some rain in the forecast in Raleigh, which I think would actually benefit the Irish because of their running attack.
How ironic is it the last time these teams played, I was actually on NC State in that game. Like you said, it was a hurricane. It was just monsoon, like rains that day, and it was 10-3. You said the final?
10-3.
And I think there's a hurricane kind of headed that way this weekend too. It's not going to make it there for the game, right?
Yeah, let's not have that situation unfold again. Another home dog, 3:30 Eastern, ABC, Texas A&M at Miami. These two teams played last year in a pretty ugly game. Texas A&M won in College Station 17-9. Miami actually outgained Texas A&M by 128 yards in that game last year, had a 27-16 first down advantage, but ultimately the Canes, it was a kind of a foreshadowing of what their season would be, disastrous. They did not come out with a victory. Both these teams, albeit against lesser competition, pretty impressive in week 1. Miami took care of the real Miami, according to Brett Gabbert. Dominated them 493 to 215 yards. Tyler Van Dyke 17-22, 201 yards through the air. They won that game 38-3. Texas A&M, they smashed New Mexico. Connor Wegman went 18-23, 5 touchdown passes here. Matt, I'm going to be on the dog here. I like Miami. We've seen a little bit of movement towards the Canes in the market this week, but I'm going to take the 4 with Miami against Texas A&M. Certainly think they're live. I was hoping for like 105 or something like that. Just brutal conditions. Not going to be the case. It looks like temps in the upper 80s, low 90s, so it shouldn't be too bad there. 3:30 Eastern on Saturday. But Miami went to the portal, 7th best portal team in the country. Obviously, Texas A&M is recruited at an elite level, but I'm going to roll with Miami here. Shannon Dawson taking over as the OC after Josh Gaddis did not work out for the Canes last year. Lance Guidry, the new defensive coordinator, very highly thought of coming from Marshall. So give me the Canes plus the points against Texas A&M on Saturday. 2
coaches I don't like here.
Agreed with that.
Jimbo Fisher and Mario Cristobal, 2 bet against coaches for me for the most part. I don't disagree with the home dog here. I'm just going to stay away from this play. I'll let you play it. I'll root for your side here. Texas A&M didn't prove a lot to me last week by pounding New Mexico. That's a really bad Lobos team, offensively inept. So I still, with Texas A&M, I still have to see it to believe it. You're going to have to prove it to me. So I got a friend who loves A&M in this game, and I said, I don't know how you could love A&M. I don't love Miami either.
Yeah.
But this is a prove it to me type of game where I'm just going to watch and take some notes.
Well, one game that you and I are on the same side of has been a situational spot I have been looking forward to all off-season long. We have a clip from the VSiN College Football Betting Podcast. This was back on May 31st, talking about how this game could potentially set up. So this was back on May 31st. I was trying to will this scenario into existence. Take a listen as we get you ready for Oregon and Texas Tech. Give me a nice plus price there, odds makers. Week 2, Texas Tech hosting Oregon. I
think I can win that game outright.
I do too. And I we talked about Wyoming, Texas Tech. I feel like we've talked about it way too much on this podcast already, not just this particular one, but just over the past couple of weeks. But the way my brain works, Brad, I'm like, Texas Tech, I know you bet it, so I don't want you to lose your bet, but I'm like, give me a close game against Wyoming. So then people will say, they stink. And then we just pounce on Texas Tech week 2 against Oregon. All right. We spoke it into existence. Now let's bring it on home, Texas Tech. A best bet for Matt last week was Wyoming plus the points. I personally bet it, but didn't give it on the podcast. Tailed Mr. Youmans there and was able to cash that one with an outright victory for the Pokes. Texas Tech went up to Laramie. They outgained Wyoming by over 110 yards. They had a 17-0 lead, blew that. And if you're into post-game win expectancy, Bill Conley does it, his S&P Plus, 82.4% post-game win expectancy. Now, look, Bo Nix and Oregon, they throw up 81 points, the most points scored by an FBS team since 2014. But give me weird Lubbock at night. Thinking back to when Brent Musburger was on the call, November 1st, 2008, when Graham Harrell connected with Michael Crabtree with 1 second to go as Texas Tech beat Texas 39-33. Guns up, Matt! Give me the points with Texas Tech.
Yeah, I like the Red Raiders here, too. A lot of handicappers really high on this Texas Tech team going into the season. You can't jump off the bandwagon just because of one loss in Laramie. That's a tough place to play. And like I said last week, Wyoming's got maybe the best defense in the Mountain West with 10 starters back. Craig Bowles, a hell of a coach. You had an experienced quarterback, a big physical offensive line, and 3 guys who could run it. Wyoming's not a bad team at all. I thought that 14 was too big last week. This is a classic situational spot again where you got a good team off a bad loss, coming home as a home dog, an inflated line. The number was supposed to be 3.5. Now we got 7. I'll take the Red Raiders. I think they got a great shot to win the game.
We got the Tyler Shuck revenge game. Yeah. We got Bo Nix on the road. Come on, Red Raiders. Texas Tech, prime time in Lubbock. More road dogs to discuss on the other side. It is the VSiN College Football Betting Podcast.
This is VSiN's College Football Betting Podcast.
I want more dogs. We need more dogs, Matt. Last week.
No kitty cats.
No kitty cats in here. Last week, dogs, home dogs, went 7-4 ATS, 4 outright wins, including the Pokes of Wyoming. This week, 19, count them, 19 home dogs. And we just talked about Texas Tech. Both Matt and I on the Red Raiders. Guns up. Let's get a good situational spot. Lubbock at night. 6.5. Both Matt and I were able to get the 7. Look around. You probably get a cheap 7 out there as well. But let's get to a top 25 matchup. Another home dog situation where the Tulane Green Wave host Ole Miss. And this is a 3:30 Eastern kick on ESPN2. My bad. I thought South Alabama would be ready for the challenge. They were not. Corners, not pretty there for South Alabama. A couple turnovers as well led to a 20-point Tulane victory. Well done, Green Wave. Michael Pratt, 14 of 15, 294 yards, 4 touchdowns. Also passed Sean King for second most touchdowns in Tulane history, as John Schriffen on the call said, "Move over, Sean King." So Michael Pratt now tied with Patrick Ramsey for the school lead for most touchdown passes. A 98.0 passing grade per PFF. Hell of a performance, but Michael Pratt banged up, Matt, in this spot. And we've seen the market really go with Ole Miss in this situation, and I would agree with it. I tend to lean here, Ole Miss. Not going to be an official play, but this offense for Ole Miss is the real deal. 667 yards, albeit against FCS Mercer. Quinshon Judkins, 1,500 rushing yards last year, tops in the SEC. Trey Harris, the transfer they got in from Louisiana Tech, 4 touchdown receptions. How about Ole Miss in the portal this year? Number 3. According to 247 Sports, Jackson Dart looks the part. If you don't like him, you go to Spencer Sanders. You don't like him, go to Will Howard. They got an embarrassment of riches offensively. I think this, while I was wrong last week, Matt, I think this is where you start to see those holes of Tulane losing their top 3-4 tacklers from last year, losing their defensive coordinator, losing their offensive coordinator. Great win last week. You proved me wrong. I will not officially play this, but I look a little bit towards the Rebs in this spot.
Yeah, I did not bet this, but I lean Rebels too. I don't disagree with what you said. I mean, how stacked is that Ole Miss quarterback room? Jackson Dart is going to be the starter again this week against the Green Wave, but he's got Spencer Sanders, transfer from Oklahoma State, Will Howard behind him. This is a high-powered Ole Miss offense again, and I think Tulane is probably going to look like a bit of a different team this week. I was surprised the Green Wave looked so good last week. Beat your South Alabama. A lot of guys like South Alabama last week, not just you.
And we were all wrong.
I think Tulane comes back to earth a little bit here, and I don't want to bet against this Ole Miss team. Like I said, it's going to be Ole Miss or pass.
More home dogs. How about the Baylor Bears? They lose to Texas State. Wow. The Bobs go down there and take care of business. TJ Finley. Auburn fans are wondering, where the hell was that when you were at Auburn? He was phenomenal for Texas State. We'll get to Texas State maybe to close out the show. An interesting one against UTSA. No bet for me in this one. Both starting quarterbacks, I would imagine, will be out. We know Blake Shapen, the quarterback for Baylor, will be out. Cam Rising didn't play week 1 for Utah against Florida. They were able to win that game and cover 24-11. Market rolling with the Utah Utes in this one, as high as 8.5 as we look right now. Noon Eastern on ESPN, Matt.
Yeah, I was shaping out. I don't want the Bears. I'm told that Cameron Rising's doubtful and leaning towards being out in this game in Waco. But, Tim, I'm not going to lay this type of number on the road with the Utes. I was not blown away with the way the Utah offense looked with Bryson Barnes, a quarterback. You had a couple of quarterbacks playing that first game against Florida. You had the big touchdown strike right off the bat by Barnes. And then, Tim, there was not a lot of offense from Utah the rest of the way. And I didn't see enough that says, hey, okay, I'm going to lay more than a touchdown on the road with Utah with backup quarterback. So this is going to be a pass for me.
Prime time on the Palouse. Washington State. And once again, raising my hand, I was wrong. Bet against Washington State last week. Thought my Colorado State Rams got a nice CLV trophy on that one. You know, not to be the case.
Here's the thing with closing line value, for those who don't know what CLV means, it just means a bunch of us had it wrong. It does.
It was one of those spots where Matt and I am known, I don't know if you know this, but I am known to express my feelings on Twitter every once in a while. And within about 5 minutes, I was like, I'm on the wrong side of this one. You could tell right away.
I didn't even waste my time watching the whole game because you could tell, like you said, right away, there was a mismatch.
Colorado State couldn't run the ball.
A misread.
And Washington State looked the part. And Cameron Ward, 451 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, also rushed for 40 yards. They obliterate Colorado State 50-24. So they're now at home. They beat Wisconsin last year 17-14. Matt, I'm curious your read on this one. Washington State is catching 6 on at home against Wisconsin, a Wisconsin team you are very high on. So any thoughts on what to expect prime time in Pullman?
Yeah, you have to separate the big picture and your season-long futures bets from your individual game handicapping, Tim, in situations like this. Yeah, I love the Badgers in the big picture. I think they go over 8.5 wins. They win the Big Ten West, but this is a tricky spot in the schedule. Again, last year, Wisconsin was a 17-point home favorite in this game and lost 17-14. Didn't even score 17, and that's why Paul Chryst is gone, why Graham Mertz is gone, and why Luke Fickell is in, a new offensive coordinator's in, and you have Tanner Mordecai to transfer from SMU, a quarterback. Mordecai did not look great last week, to put it mildly, but he's adjusting to a new offense. Man, I tell you what, the more I look at this game, if 6.5s pop up on the screen, I was hoping for a 7 at some point this week. I think the home dog Cougars might be the play here, Tim, because this is a tough travel spot for Wisconsin, and this is not a Wisconsin offense that looked really good last week. Washington State did look really good. You don't want to overreact, but hey, it's Cam Ward's second year in the system at Washington State, and he looked like it. Tanner Mordecai looked like a player in his first game in the system at Wisconsin. This is not an official play for me right now, but I bet you by Saturday I'm probably going to have the Washington State, and hopefully I'll have +7 if I can get that.
Tanner Mordecai, the SMU transfer, 2 picks against Buffalo, but they do have dynamic running backs, and Ches Malusi and Braylon Allen both going for over 140 yards.
And that's the difference, I think, why Wisconsin's going to be the best team in the Big Ten West. Those 2 running backs are studs, and I don't think that offense is going to be slowed down. Once they play a few games, Badgers are going to look a hell of a lot better.
And Phil Longo, air raid. Yeah, when he had Javonte Williams and Michael Carter in the backfield in North Carolina, both of those guys rushed for over 1,000 yards. He utilizes his running backs. Dynamic offense, won't be on display in the old Cy-Hawk Trophy game, Matt. 3:30 Eastern on Fox. This will no doubt be the game where I'm going to be probably most angry at myself, because I'm taking the points with the Cyclones. Give me the 4 with Iowa State. Rocco Becht, Anthony Becht's son, started for the Cyclones. 10 of 13, 113 yards, 2 touchdowns. I'm not playing this because of the offense. Iowa State's defense is the real deal, and I think this is going to be an ugly game. Look at the total. For those of you watching with us, you can see it, 36.5. That would be the lowest NFL game. And it's a college football game between Iowa State and Iowa. What was the score last year, you're wondering? 10-7. Iowa State won that game. Interesting nugget here.
Yep.
5 straight wins for the Hawkeyes in Ames. So they've had the Cyclones number. I know all offseason we've been talking about the fact that Hunter Deckers and a handful of other members of Iowa State, I believe 4 starters in total, no longer with the program because of the gambling situation. I think that's why you're getting maybe a shred of value on the Cyclones here. And Cade McNamara is not healthy. The Michigan transfer, 17 of 30 last week in a really uninspiring effort against Utah State. So give me the 4.5 with the Cyclones here at home against Iowa. What could go wrong betting on Iowa State and Rocco Becht? Late night, Matt. It's always good to have a late night bet. You had one. You were watching it in person. You had Coastal Carolina plus the 14.5.
I had to sweat that one out too, Tim. Like, you're going to have to sweat this one out with the Cyclones. I don't think there's a rivalry in college football that bores me more than the Cy-Hawk. Iowa State. Did they ever play? I mean, there was one entertaining game a few years ago.
44-41, I want to say.
That was a really good game. Other than that, man, this is. I think we're going to send Mike Palm out there to do the ceremonial coin flip before the game. Grew up in Iowa. You have to live in Iowa to enjoy this type of game. But I will say the Iowa defense is going to be legit.
Yep.
And once again, the Hawkeyes are going to have a chance to win the Big Ten West as well. I don't disagree with you. You're taking 4.5 points in a game with a total of 36, and it was 10-7 last year. But I know that at some point you're going to be really aggravated. You're going to be tweeting. You're going to be ticked off. So I just want you to know what you're in for, Tim, before this game even kicks off.
I totally know.
Okay.
I'm just waiting for 6-3 to be the final score in this game, which would be totally fine if we could get 6-3. So that game, once again,
get 6-0.
6-0 wouldn't be great. It wouldn't be great. But I mentioned it. Speaking of late night, it's always good to have some late night tickets in pocket. I've got one. Another play from Matt in that late night window. We'll wrap things up next on the VSiN College Football Betting Podcast.
This is VSiN's College Football Betting Podcast.
Wouldn't you know, we haven't finished all the dog talk. There's still some more dogs out there. Matt Youmans at Matt Youmans 247. I'm at 1 Tim Murray. All right, let's get to some more dogs. And Matt, we live in Las Vegas, so these games kick off around 7:30. But for those back east, it's thought to be maybe the get-back spot sometimes. Having a ticket in pocket late night, always kind of makes you feel warm and fuzzy inside. And Matt, like I mentioned in the previous segment, he was able to cash that Coastal Carolina plus 14.5 ticket. We both have a play in a late night game this weekend. I'll start with yours. Oklahoma State at Arizona State, 10:30 Eastern. This game will kick off on FS1. This is actually an important play for your win totals, I believe, because you are pro.
Swing game.
Yeah, this is a big game. So give us the breakdown. The Sun Devils catching, I believe you can get 3 and a hook out there.
Well, the hooks have disappeared.
The hooks have disappeared, but they're a 3-point dog against the Pokes of Oklahoma State.
Yeah, for record-keeping purposes here, we'll call it Arizona State plus 3. I was on the Follow the Money show with Mitch Moss and Paul Howard on Tuesday morning, and I took Arizona State plus 4. There were a bunch of 4s out there at that point. Those have disappeared. Now, I played Oklahoma State win total under 6.5 and Arizona State over 4.5, so love to see Arizona State win this game, obviously. But I do like the Sun Devils regardless, even if you throw out the win total plays here. Jaden Rashada, freshman quarterback, got to start because Drew Pine, the Notre Dame transfer, injured his hamstring in camp. I thought Sun Devils were going to be better early in the season with Drew Pine at quarterback. He's not a superstar, Tim, but he's got a lot of experience. You know, at Notre Dame, he played in big games. He's got experience. He'd be better than a freshman. But Pine, I don't think he's going to play this week either. So it looks like the freshman Rashada is going to go again. But he could take a big leap and improvement from week 1 to week 2. Kenny Dillingham, the young coach at Arizona State, I think he just turned 34 years old. He's going to prove to be a really good hire in Tempe. And I think he's got the type of creative offensive mind that's going to elevate this offense. And Arizona State's got a lot of transfers, over 30 transfers they've got to integrate into the system on both sides of the ball. So things were a little bit ragged the first week. And Sun Devils didn't come close to covering that 34 points against Southern Utah. But I'm not going to read too much into that. That was a weird night where a dust storm hit the
bizarre.
Hit the stadium in Tempe, and Arizona State was lucky to escape with a 24-21 win. I do like this Arizona State team. 8 home games on the schedule. This is the second one. I think the Sun Devils are going to go over that win total of 4.5. Oklahoma State, Tim, I got to mention this quickly. Cowboys could not run the ball for the first 3 quarters last week against Central Arkansas. Their offense woke up a little bit in the fourth quarter, but they don't have elite quarterback play by any stretch. They've got Alan Bowman, former Texas Tech transfer who went to Michigan, couldn't see the field. Gunnar Gundy, coach's son behind him. And this Oklahoma State offense is really struggling. I think Mike Gundy was the biggest loser of the offseason in terms of Power 5 coaches or close to it. In terms of the transfer portal, he lost a lot, including his starting quarterback, Spencer Sanders. Playmakers on both sides of the ball. I like the home dog here. Sun Devils on Saturday night catching 3. Like I said, an open 4. But this is an Oklahoma State team that led Central Arkansas 13-7 going into the fourth quarter last week and could not run the ball, was having trouble moving the ball offensively. I like Arizona State here to win the game. Hopefully that happens. And you're right about what you say about Saturday nights. You always like to have action, but you especially like to have winners on the Saturday night late window because there are people looking for the get-even game or the get-out game. And that's one of the few late-night games on Saturday.
Well, hopefully it'll be the cherry on top games that me and you are sitting with some winners in our pocket and just increasing that. By the way, the Pac-12, Matt, 12-0 straight up last week, 10-2 ATS. Yeah. Quite the impressive Pac-12 week, and we'll see if they keep building on it. Hopefully Arizona State comes home, and hopefully in Berkeley, the Cal Golden Bears continue to build off what they did last week. A very popular pick was the North Texas Mean Green last week, and Cal went down to Denton and dropped 58 on the Mean Green, 669 yards of offense, 322 passing yards, and then 347 rushing yards. They got 2 legitimate running backs. Jaden Ott is back, 188 yards on the ground, and then they got the Montana State transfer, whose name I'm not going to try to pronounce, but he rushed for 3 touchdowns in that game. And our friend Brian Edwards pointed this out on social media. Justin Wilcox as a home dog, head coach of Cal, 10-4 ATS. as a dog, just straight up 26-10 ATS. I'm going to roll with the Cal Golden Bears. They're playing Auburn, 10:30 Eastern. I really liked what I saw from Cal. They were a team that they did lose the kid Sturdivant, who's going to be really good for UCLA, but they were busy in the portal, adding some pieces. And I think Cal is live in this spot late night in Berkeley. We talked about travel spot for Wisconsin. It's a tricky travel spot for Auburn. You're flying all the way out to the Bay Area. This isn't going to be a situation where it's going to be a raucous crowd. We know it's not going to be that lively there in Berkeley, but I do like Jake Spavital taking over this offense, proved out in week number 1, and I think Cal's going to be able to score on Auburn. Auburn did cover against UMass. That was another popular dog, UMass, last week. But this game opened 7, quickly went down to 6.5, and I always think that's kind of an indicator, Matt, of where this is sitting. I think the public's going to think Auburn's on sale here. Yeah. Probably didn't watch a ton of Cal. They think Hugh Freeze is going to get things going. I thought it was a good hire, but I'm going to take 6.5. You can find a cheap 7. I have got a cheap 7 at -115 at a local shop here in Vegas, but take the 7. Sam Jackson, the quarterback, did hurt his shoulder, but has been reportedly practicing all week, which is good news. Ben Finley, though, stepped in and played really well.
Actually, I think 7s will show up again on this game, so don't take 6.5 yet. It's a Saturday night game. There's a good chance you're going to see 7 on the board, so if you like the Bears as dogs, you're going to be able to get +7. And, Tim, I like that side too. That's on my short list of games I'm probably going to play this week. I might even take 31 if I can get it with Stanford at USC. You know, we got 3 West Coast games late Saturday.
Off the radar game for me before we get to our best bet recap. Rutgers, Matt, got an opportunity to play on CBS. Wow, that was something. They beat Northwestern 24-7. Rutgers held Northwestern to around 200 yards of offense. The Rutgers offense, though, not that impressive, just 285 yards. This is kind of a hold your nose special, but I'm going to take the 9 with Temple at Rutgers here. This was, I'll shout out Adam Burke earlier this week. He brought me onto this one, and it intrigued me. Temple was struggling early against Akron. Defense ratcheted up against the Zips there last weekend. So I'll take the points in Piscataway with the Temple Owls. Give me the 9 with Temple, Matt. So let's get to a little best bet recap, and if we have time, maybe slip in another game or two. But people always want the best bet recap. So 5 official plays for Matt. Matt, what do you have official plays here for the podcast?
All right, NC State +7.5 against Notre Dame. That's a home dog. Nebraska. What are we calling this? 3 or 3.5?
We'll call it 3 for official purposes.
Let's call it 3 because I think all the 3.5s have disappeared at this moment, right?
You might get it, but it went down to 2.5 at time of record. So we'll save 3 for keeping purposes.
Also, I'll call Arizona State +3, even though I've got +4. I think all the 3.5s have disappeared on that one too. The Sun Devils as home dogs. Wolfpack as home dogs. How about the Texas Tech Red Raiders as home dogs? You got +7, +7 on Tech, and we're taking 2 road dogs. Nebraska being 1, the other being Texas, +7.5 at Alabama. DraftKings has the best number if you like the dog in that game. 7 in the hook on the Longhorns.
All right, my best bet recap, a couple similarities. I like when we're on the same side as opposed to going head-to-head. I don't like this competitiveness between you and me. Texas Tech, guns up. Down in Lubbock, let's channel Brent Musburger from 2008. Let's get a late touchdown to give the Red Raiders an outright victory there. We're going with the Corn. We're fading Coach Prime. Maybe an overreaction, maybe a little bit of a letdown for the Corn. Officially, for the podcast purposes, that is +3. Iowa State +4.5. What could go wrong in a game with a total of 36.5? Miami. 2 coaches, I agree with Matt, that I do not like, but we're going to trust in Mario Cristobal, I guess, a little bit more. We're going to take the 4 with the Canes. Cal, hopefully we can get the 7. If you can get the cheap 7, grab that. Maybe wait a little bit because this is the late night game, but we're taking the Cal Golden Bears plus the 6.5 or 7, and then Temple plus the 9, Matt. That is going to do it for the podcast. A pretty good Friday night game. Illinois, Kansas. Jalen Daniels expected to make his season debut for the Jayhawks. That's Matt Youmans at Matt Youmans 247. I am at 1 Tim Murray. Let's have ourselves a winning week We'll talk to you next week right here on the VSiN College Football Betting Podcast.